So, Brother Clint here, come on up. Let's give him a hand, hey?
That's the shortest introduction I've ever got. It's like, Chad, you gonna introduce me? Oh yeah, I'll introduce you. Yeah, we'll see how that went. Well, I'm Clint Zettner. Some of you may remember I was here last year. I spoke briefly. I'm gonna touch on that. I get the pleasure this morning of kicking us off for this wonderful day. Who enjoyed Wade last night? Wow, yeah. Some excellent nuggets there. So I'm gonna spend about 10 minutes connecting some dots from what God's been doing in my life since last year. I've been doing some crazy stuff, and then I'm gonna hand it over to Virgil Anderson after I'm done. So you're stuck with me for about 10 minutes. I speak fast. I usually have a lot of energy. I think I'll keep you awake. I know many of you had very little sleep. Hopefully I can keep your attention. Well, I'd like to start with this. A friend of mine, Jim Morrison, just retired recently he's a pilot for an airline. And I have a men's group with him. A bunch of men got together. Corey was in that group. And we were talking about dads. We were talking about, have you ever told your dad you loved him? And did your dad tell you that he loved you? I thought it was a pretty simple question. But wow, did I get a diverse response as men from that simple question, that some of them were like, yeah, my dad loved me. It was great. It was amazing. Other ones, they never heard it. And I heard stories where they didn't hear it for half of their life. And then all of a sudden they were able to then build that relationship with their father. All those stories from one little question. Have you felt love from your father, your earthly father? So one of the guys there, Jim, he said this statement. It just rung in my heart. I'd give a king's ransom to be able to talk to my dad. His dad's passed. He said, I'd give it all. I'd give it all for a little bit of time with my dad. I'm like, wow, is that important? That relationship with your father? I'm like, yes. Clint Zettner. I'm from Litchfield. I'm an engineer. I used to go to Cornerstone for lots of years. Now I go to Grace Hill. I still connect with lots of the churches around the area. Last year I was up here and we talked about spiritual death. I started last year's talk with 33 years. For 33 years of my life, I didn't know Jesus. I was spiritually dead. I didn't know. I was a sinner, searching for purpose. I was really selfish. That's the story. Some of you may know me. Some of you that know me, I've spoke on some of these things before. I'm going to give you a little snapshot of my past so I can connect the dots to what God has been doing this year. I was raised in North Dakota, single mom. Never met my dad. I had no role models growing up at all. And my mom did have a boyfriend that was in the house throughout my childhood. He was not a good man. I grew up seeing abuse, all the things that you don't ever want to see, all those things. And I remember telling myself as a kid, if that's what a dad's like, I don't even want one. That's worse than having nothing. So I lived my whole life that way. Whole life thinking, I don't want one. Well, that left a wound. It left a wound in my heart. A wound of alone. There's nobody I can rely on. There's nobody that's going to help me in this journey of life. I'm on my own. I need to do it myself. And I know that our childhood, the things that we go through, it leads us to the people we become. For me, that showed up. I'm a driven achiever. You just show me a target and get me to say yes, I will accomplish it. I will win. I will accomplish it. I love winning. I love it. I really do. So right, you can tell. Somebody asked me, a leadership coach, hey, Clint, who can do it better than you? I'm like, nobody. I can, right? Because, right, it's me. It's about control. It's about perfectionist. I grew up that I can't rely on anybody, so I need to be better. I need to do it better than anybody else. When you're like that, you don't typically have a lot of friends. I'm very transactional. I connect with people for the transaction, not relational. If I look back at my life, my relationships were shallow. I may have knew a few people. I knew people. I thought they were my friends. They weren't really my friends. It was to party. It was to do this. It was whatever. It wasn't relational. That was my life. Most of my life. So Then, actually, this is kind of weird. I'm a Christian now, so 33 years I wasn't. I'm 51, so about 18 years as a Christian. But it took a long time for me to really understand that I'm not alone. And probably 5 years ago, I was at a camp in Wisconsin, and they were talking about the good, good father. I think of the song, Chris Tomlin, and you're a good, good father. And I realized about 5 years ago that I'm a beloved son of the Father. I grew up not having a father, not wanting one, not being anywhere near one, and it sucked. And I realized I'm never alone. The words of that song, I'm never alone, I'm loved by you. And I was thinking about it this morning. I was listening to the song. And you know, when all of a sudden something hits you in the heart, your emotions, you can't control them. In the statement I wrote down, I just want somebody to love me. It's in my core. I grew up wanting somebody to love me. And I didn't realize it took me a lot of life to figure that out. Whew. So, only child, no dad, all this dysfunction, all these wounds. My current family, some of you may know, I have 10 kids now. We're in a big blended family, 7 grandkids. I'm a father-in-law, I'm a I am so many things without any models. How do you figure that out? Right, Jesus, right? There is no chance. You throw yourself into that ocean of sharks, you just have to figure it out. And so it's been crazy. It's been crazy, and it's been quite the journey. Well, we started something recently, and I realized, so my youngest 2 are 7 and 10 years old. At dinner table, they like doing this thing like, hey, Mom, Dad, tell me about a time when your first car. Tell me about where you lived beginning. Have you had your kids ask you stuff like that? They want to know about you. They want to know about your journey. They want to connect with you. So as we were going, I started, talking about this, talking about that. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, who's your dad? I'm like, have I really told them much about that? And I said, hey, my mom never told my dad that he had a son. My 10-year-old just couldn't comprehend that. Why would a mom, she asked me at the table, why would a mom not tell the dad that they had a son? I'm like, I don't know, honey. I don't know. I don't know why she didn't. But that haunted me. And I knew, so this is recent, this is a few months ago. I knew that there was a chance that I could find my dad at some point, but I'm 51, who cares? I've lived a life without him. He's probably dead. He's probably, who knows, living in a box somewhere. He's probably some prick. I don't even want to know him. I'm probably better without him. For 3 years, though, I bought an ancestry test, and I had it on my shelf, and I looked at that test for 3 years, thinking, could that be an answer? Could that be an answer to it? Well, after my daughter asked me that question, I'm like, now's the time, God. Now's the time. I'm going to take that test. And I did. So you spit a little thing, you send it in, you wait forever, you get the results, and all of a sudden it said, I realized I'm not Native American. I grew up in Bismarck, North Dakota. I thought I was Native American my whole life. I thought I was Native American. They're like, you're not Native American. I'm like, what? Right? It's the stories we tell ourselves. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know my past, so I made it up. Right? We can make up things, but I'm not a Native American. It was crazy. And then I hit the button, and it says, hey, do you want to know your nationality by your mom and your dad? I'm like, what? How can this tell me where my mom and dad are from if I don't know my dad? It knew my dad. It knew enough about all the connections. And so I'm like, yeah. I realize I'm from over here, over there, over there. And then all of a sudden it says, hey, do you want to see your DNA? I'm like, yes, I do. It costs you $99. But for 3 months, you can get it for $1. I'm like, sold. So dollar, I pay my dollar. Best dollar I've probably ever spent. It all of a sudden showed me, hey, on your mom's side, you have these relatives. I'm like, hey, there's my aunt. Those are my cousins. I know them. And then all of a sudden I click on the dad button. And it shows 2 cousins that I don't know. I'm like, who are those? I'm like, that's weird. So all of a sudden, I'm an engineer. I'm like, I'm going to investigate this. And I start to put together the pieces. I start to search for it. And all of a sudden, I start to connect some pieces. And it was scary to know that I could be opening Pandora's box, right? You're 51 years old. You have a dad, maybe still living, that has no idea he has a son. Do you open that box? I did. I tried. So those two cousins, I sent them a long message saying, I'm not a creeper. I'm really like, hey, ancestry, this isn't strange at all, but I'd love to learn about your family because it might be connected to my family. I sent that message and waited for 2 weeks, and they didn't call. They didn't send me a message. They didn't anything. Our minds are funny. Our minds start to tell us stories. Ooh, they're searching, they're telling stories. They're like, who's that bastard child? Who's this? Who's that, right? Your mind just goes crazy. And then Thanksgiving was coming up, and I just I started picturing that they're going to be meeting together in families and be like, who's this person and who's this? I'm like, I couldn't handle it. So I look online, I'm like, I realized that my two cousins, their dads are brothers. And so if they're my cousins, that means that their uncles, one of them must be my dad, if the math adds up. So I looked online, I found an obituary, and there was 4 brothers. I'm like, well, I know it's not these two because they'd be sisters. They're cousins. So it must be one of these two if it's true. So I look up, I found a phone number. So it was right before Thanksgiving, and I'm sitting there in the morning at home, and I'm like, I need to make a scary call. I'm just going to call. And it was in California. I don't know much about California. I call this number, and I remember, I'm like, this is scary. And then I remember telling myself, Clint, you do scary things. You do hard things, right? That's where growth is. Your whole life you've been doing hard things. It's okay to do hard things. Just pick up the phone and call. And I called. Lady answers the phone. She's like, who's this? I'm like, Clint Zentner. Oh, why are you calling? Treating me just like a telemarketer. Which she should have, right? I was a telemarketer. And I start to tell her a little bit of the story, and she's like, what? And I'm like, well, is there this person here? I'd love to talk to him and just understand more. I'll leave him a message. I'm like, she's not leaving him any message. Half an hour later, I get a call from this guy. He calls me, he's like, hey, I heard you called, who are you? And so I start telling him the story, ancestry, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, there's a chance that you might be my dad. And he's like, what? And I go, I know, this is crazy, and I don't need anything from you. I'm an engineer, I got this, life's good, it's all, I don't need anything. And I wanted to make sure he knew that I wasn't there begging for money, I wasn't there anything. I don't need anything. I've controlled my whole life up to this point. I'm good, right? And then I said, my mom only told me 4 things that might be true about my dad. Can I run those by you? He's like, sure. So I said, okay. Was in Bismarck, North Dakota in 1972. Worked at this restaurant on the east side of the town. Drove a white pickup truck and is missing a big toe. Right? So I said, hey, do any of those things connect to you, right? Do you relate to any of those things? That's a yes-no question. Yes, no. He didn't answer. I'm like, oh no, this is bad. This is going to go south quick. And all of a sudden he goes, what was your mom's name? And I go, my mom's name was Ella. And he goes, I'm your dad. He goes, I remember Ella. She was an amazing woman. And I'm like, wow. And so at that point, he's never denied that he's my dad. And we talked, and he told me stories. He's an iron worker and a connector, and he traveled all over the U.S. and all this. And I'm telling him part of my story, and I say, yeah, I was raised by my mom, and I'm an only child in this. And he's like, whoa, what'd you say? He's like, you're not an only child, Clint. What? No. You got 3 sisters and a brother. I'm like, what? I've told myself this story over and over in my life. Only child, raised by a single mom, woe is me, the wounds, all the thing. It was true, but it was the story I was replaying in my head all the time. But truthfully, I have a brother and some sisters and a family that actually just opened their arms to me. The next day, I got a message from 3 sisters, and it said, it said, welcome to the family, baby brother. And I mean, I don't know how that makes you feel, but that emotion of I'm part of something, I belong, and somebody loves me is powerful. So that is amazing. I was able to go down there. That was in Thanksgiving. January, I was able to go down to California, spent 4 days with my dad and stepmom down there. It was amazing. It was wonderful. So that whole, I'd give a king's ransom to be able to talk with my dad, we did. I spent 4 days doing that. 4 days doing that. It was wonderful. So I went off my notes, but in those 4 days we had stories. One of the really cool fun things, when connecting it to what Wade said, memories and adventures. When I was down there, my dad's 74. He says, hey, we're going to take the buggies. I know a guy that used to go in the mountains of California. We're in Sonora, California, right outside of Yosemite. And he used to do all the logging roads, his buddies. These are all 70-some-year-old men, right, that built the logging roads, and these are adventurous. I've never been in the mountains of California, but let me tell you, there are times that you are hundreds and hundreds of feet straight up from the tops of trees. And I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm like, oh, my dad's going to kill me my first time I'm out on an adventure with him. My sister said, don't let dad get hurt. Oh, I won't. You know, you don't understand your dad, Clint. He will want to show off for you. And he did. It was crazy. We had a blast connecting stories, building memories. So I'm almost done. I know I take a long time, but the thing that, as I was sitting there, I started to put together pictures. And through this, I realized I have 3 sisters, a brother. The crazy thing, my brother was in the same 3rd grade class as me, and we didn't know it. We didn't know we were brothers. Wow. That's crazy, same 3rd grade class. There's a class picture of us, and we're in the same picture. Yeah, and none of us knew. Yeah. As I was going through this, I thought about the Father, how powerful that is. Your Father has a place in your life. Those 4 days with my dad that I've had so far, life-changing, life-changing. Other people could say those words to me, tell me those stories or anything, but my Father lived that. He is part of me. I am part of him. That connection, you can't exchange that for anything. And I grew up with a mom, right? I thought, how did I get my masculinity? How did I become a man? I didn't. I worked a lot of years trying to figure that out. You cannot become a man only by a woman. You need masculinity to help you be a man. So this whole thing, I saw pictures of my nieces. Transactional versus relational. I'm feeling my life going from transactional to relational. I took a picture of my 5 nieces, and I don't know what happened to me as a man, but my heart just loves them. Just loves them. I don't even know them. But as an uncle, I'm their uncle. I don't even know what it means to be an uncle. But how God has given us the ability to love others is just, I can't wait to meet them and see their kids and do all that. So, okay, yeah. So I've spent a lot of time building relationships with people around me. It's transactional. God's saying relational. I'm going to be going, I think about it. Monday movie night. Anybody have family night, Monday movie night, something you do? Right, a few of you. We started that recently. So we got lots of kids, but the 7, 8, we watched Annie and Benji. I would never pick Annie and Benji, but like the old school, 1974. So we're sitting on the couch. And you know, one thing I know is that when I'm home, my girls love me. And I'm trying to be a best dad I can. When I sit down on the couch and they see dad stop moving, they swarm me. They cuddle in. They get as close as they can. They nuzzle in. They want to be by their dad. And I am just loving that. So make that time. Make the time to do those things. In my life, I'm going to be going to Easter in North Dakota to meet some family. There's a reunion happening in North Dakota. I have uncles and aunts that are reaching out to me. And how cool is that? My dad said something. You know, I look at my family, and it's a story again, dysfunctional. I got this big blended family, 7 stepkids, 3 biological kids, all this stuff. It's a mess. It is really a mess. I told my dad, I'm like, here I am. I got this big mess over here. My dad's an iron worker. He spent 40, 50 years in the ironworking field. He's like, I love them all, Clint. I love them all. I'm like, no, but you don't understand. This one, he's got a little bit of sin, or this stepdaughter of mine, oh yeah. And he's like, I love them all, Clint. Once they're family, they're all in. You are not able to be excluded from my family. He taught me a lesson there. I'm pretty good at saying, oh yeah, this is kind of ugly. And my dad, he's like, I don't care, Clint. I've seen the worst in men, and I've seen them turn around. I've seen them go from nothing to be exceptional. Your family is your family, and your family is my family. And they are all welcome, and they are all loved. And I'm thinking, this is from an iron worker that was around drunks and all this stuff most of his life. He's got something figured out. He's not a Christian. He's not. He loves lots of people. Not yet.
Amen.
And I got to believe that God has prepared me and others in his journey through my testimony, through the life that's around. God has been creating this story. Maybe for some of you, maybe something I said connected with you, like Wade, what Wade said. There's pieces of things we hear in people's stories that really make a difference. God was preparing me, I believe, for this. And, my time, when maybe it was 20 years ago, I would have wanted to know. God's timing is always right. I wasn't ready 20 years ago. The timing was now, and it happened. God knew that. I didn't. So God's timing is amazing. I don't want you guys to have the same regrets as I heard on the men's call. I don't want this to be your story. I'd give a king's ransom to be able to talk to my dad. If you're that dad, go talk to your kids. If you have opportunities to build relationships and love your kids, or if your dad is still here, connect with him. Well, you don't know what he's done. I don't care. I don't care. Be bold, stand up, do scary things. Connect. I heard all those wounds of those men that are like the dad wounds. And you have a time right now that you can be part of loving the men around you, your kids, your dad. Do that. Build those relationships and build those memories. That's what I got. Thanks for listening.